Welcome everyone, this is Brian. Today, we are going to cover impairment of long-lived assets under ASPE 3063. Long-term assets include property, plant and equipment, vehicles, aircraft, investments, and intangible assets. We must impair the asset, bringing it down to an appropriate level. So why do we record impairment of asset? Impairment of asset is necessary to record fair market value on the balance sheet when the asset loses its value. This normally applies to property, plant and equipment, vehicles, long-term investments, or intangible assets. We impair the asset to bring asset value down to reflect the current situation of the asset. So how do we impair assets? Impairment is necessary when the current value of asset exceeds fair market value. In another word, an impairment loss is the amount by which the carrying amount of an asset or a cash-generating unit exceeds its recoverable amount. What is recoverable amount? Recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost to sell and future cash flow. Recoverable amount should be tested whenever certain events or changes in circumstances. For example, hurricane damages on property, plant, and equipment, or damages to equipments. Let's now consider a situation. Let's assume that there is a factory plant and it's in good operation. The purchase price for factory is 10 million and the current value is 8 million. However, a severe hurricane destroyed the factory plant. Because of the hurricane, the building was destroyed. The building's recoverable amount is now only 2 million due to hurricane damage. In other words, the fair market value of the building went down to 2 million. As a result, we have impairment loss because value of the building went down from 8 million to 2 million. To calculate impairment amount, we take current value minus what was the building is worth. So we take 8 million minus the recoverable amount of 2 million, which is 6 million. Now, we can review steps to recognize impairment to solve a problem. So for recognition of impairment, steps to solve an impairment problem involves recognizing 4 steps. First, we identify whether we have an impairment, for example, any external or internal events. Secondly, we must determine the amount of recoverable amount. Thirdly, if current value is greater than recoverable amount, then we have an impairment. And lastly, impairment amount is the fair value minus the current value. Let's now look at an example. A clothing manufacturer purchased a sewing machine for $650,000. Due to decline in demand in the market, clothing prices have gone down. The sewing machine can generate $300,000 in future cash flow. The machine had been incurring depreciation for past 3 years with an accumulated depreciation amount of $93,000. The fair market value of the sewing machine was appraised at $400,000. Identify whether we have an impairment, such as external or internal events. Here, we have an external event which had an impact of the value of the sewing machine. Once we identify indicators of impairment, we must determine the recoverable amount. As I mentioned before, the recoverable amount is the higher of fair value or future cash flow. Here, the fair value is $400,000 and future cash flow that can be generated from the sewing machine is $300,000. Therefore, the recoverable amount is $400,000. Now, we determine if current value is greater than the recoverable amount, then you know it's an impairment. So the current value is $557,000. This is to take purchase price of $650,000 minus the accumulated depreciation of $93,000. The recoverable amount is greater of $400,000 or $300,000. So the greater is $400,000. The current value of $557,000 is higher than $400,000. Therefore, we must incur an impairment loss. And lastly, we'll consider impairment amount is the fair value minus the current value. So the fair value is $400,000. The current value is $557,000. $557,000 minus $400,000 is $157,000. Therefore, the impairment amount is $157,000. We need to debit impairment loss expense account by $157,000 and credit goodwill for the same amount. After an impairment, we have to subsequently measure. After impairment, the adjusted current value is the new cost. And also, we depreciate according to the new cost. Some other things to note is if the fair value of the impairment increases from time to time, the impairment loss cannot be reversed. This ends the conclusion on impairment of long-term assets. I hope this information is helpful, and feel free to message me if you have any questions. Have a great day.